Okay, ex-football player. You watched the business a little bit. You dug it. So how do you end up getting into business?
You know what, buddy? After the Los Angeles Rams, I just got bored. I went back to Boulder and got my real estate license, started selling real estate and doing a little speculating and building a house here and selling the house. And I got bored out of my mind. I got tired of talking to women that wanted this color of curtain and this color of tile. And my goodness, I was about ready to have a fit. And I went down to the local wrestling show down in Denver, and they had a card on there. I mean, Bruiser Brody was on it, Stan Hansen, Jerry Blackwell, Kurt Hennig, Big Scott Hall, down in Denver, Colorado, at that old Denver Coliseum, and it held 88,800 people, and boy, it was jam-packed. And that was exciting, I'll tell you what. And I put on a pair of cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and I had now ballooned up to, 400 plus pounds, and I was in the gym, and buddy, I could bench press 600 pounds. I could squat 1,000. And my claim to fame, man, is I could take 365 pounds behind my neck and jump press that weight 12, 15 times and in a rep. And I used to stop the gym. I mean, I don't care where I was, if I was in Venice Beach, California, and some that just everyone stopped and looked because there was no one in the gym that could do that. Not that many reps. And that was just my thing. I don't know why I was good at it. I was good at that overhead press, and they said that's a big dude, and that's a lot of weight to be jerking over your head. So I was bigger than a horse, man, and had gained a bunch of weight purposely for this meeting. I thought, hey, the bigger the better, right? Because you're watching these guys on TV, and you're thinking they're all 6'8" and all 400 pounds, and TV put size on people, and I walked in there and really saw the size of people and said, damn, I gained all this weight for nothing. So, but I remember I didn't knock on the door, Steve, and I just walked in, and everybody just froze. And a guy named Bruiser Brody stood up, walked over, and I had my boots on, and Brody was about 6'5", and he had his boots on, and so we were about eye to eye. He was a little taller than me, but I had a big boot on, so he said, what the you want in my locker room? And I said, I'm here to get a job. That's what I'm here for. And I stared him right back in the eye. And Brody was just no one to mess with, period. And we all know that. And may he rest in peace. But he turned out to be a pretty good friend of mine. And we had some places matches together. But Greg Gagne was there, and a guy named Brad Riggins was there. And they come rushing over. And Kurt Hennig, they came rushing over. And said, hey, man, you can't be in here. And I said, wait a minute, man, this is who I am. And, I live right down the road, and I played football at the University of Colorado, and I played for the Los Angeles Rams, and I had my Super Bowl ring on, and, I was ready.
Right.
And Gene Reed, the promoter, and may he rest in peace, he said, yeah, I know who Leon is. We need to talk to this guy. And he calmed everyone down, so Brody went and sat down.
Hey, let me jump in here real quick, Leon, because first of all, to all my fans out there, I'm sure you can assume that the professional wrestling dressing room is super kayfabe. Now, if you go way back about 25 years or 30 years when Leon's talking about he first walks into this dressing room, you're talking about triple kayfabe. I mean, dude, you just walked in a badass area where the business was protected, and if you were just some unbeknownst fan just thinking you're going to walk in on a meeting or what the boys are doing, it's a good way to get your ass handed to you. So it was absolutely crazy. So what possessed you to even just get the idea to go in there and say, hey, I want a job?
Well, like Steve, like I said, I was going crazy selling real estate.
You must have been.
Out of my mind. And like I said, I got a pair of jeans on and a tight T-shirt, and I was 415 pounds, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I stood by that door. I stood outside that door for an hour, probably at least an hour before I had the guts just to push it open or open it up and walk in.
So what happens? What are you thinking when Brody comes up to you face to face, and you've only seen him as a fan sitting in a chair? He's in the ring doing his thing, and of course Brody's one of my favorite all time. He had that look and that intimidating presence, that the size. And again, you're a big man, but you're talking about Bruiser Brody, the guy you've been seeing on TV. So I mean, when he comes walking up to you, what are you thinking?
You know what? I about shit my pants.
Yeah.
But not straight up. I was scared to death, but I wasn't going to show it.
Yep.
And I stared him right down in the eye and said, "Man, I'm here to get a job." And buddy, I was scared to death. My knees were shaking, my hands were shaking, and I was scared to death because, like I said, you watch wrestling on TV, especially back in those days, and you know, you thought these guys weren't just tough; they were crazy and tough. And so it took a lot of nerve to do that. But things calmed down real quick, Steve. And Brad said, "Listen, let me get a pen and paper before something happens." And Brad Riggins he wrote down his name and number. He says, "You're serious, call me." And Greg Gagne says, "Well, we appreciate you coming in." And Gene Reed had come over and shook my hand and said, No, this is Leon White. He was, you know, we had an appointment. I didn't think we'd meet in the locker room like this. And Gene was getting old, but Gene calmed everyone down. And next thing I know, man, I got my bags packed and I'm in my car on my way to Minnesota. For me, it was a great place to watch because once I got out of that camp, it was kind of like, you know, hey, this guy is not just strong, he's real strong, and he's real dangerous because he's green and he wants to do well. So first thing they did was stick me with Bruiser Brody. And, you know, it wasn't about, well, hey, I'm going to, you know, teach you some psychology, but Bruiser Brody just beat the hell out of me for 3 months. And I was black and blue. And you want a Bruiser Brody story?
Yeah.
Okay. We're in Milwaukee, and there wasn't a whole lot of people. And Brody was barking around the ring, and I'm standing there looking stupid, and the referee's standing, he's barking and doing circles, and he walks over and says, kid, just relax, stay right here, I'll be back. And we were in that Green Bay, Wisconsin indoor auditorium, and it must have held 50,000 people. Brody's barking around all the people and then took off and went all the way to the top of that stadium and was doing bark. And somehow worked his way back down, got back in the ring, walked over to me, and I'm standing there like an idiot. The bell ain't been rang, and booted me in the mouth. And let me tell you what, it was not a working boot. I took the hit on the back, and he had a chair in his hand, and the chair obviously had Milwaukee Chair Company on that chair. Okay, and it was engraved in that chair, and he hit me in the back right in front of the referee because his intent was to get disqualified, and that was it. He didn't like something. He was upset about something because I remember Nick Bockwinkel was the booker, and him and Nick had some words before the match. Maybe it's because he had to work with me, you know, because I was just greener than green. I don't know. But he booted me in the face. I went down. I got up. He took that chair and hit me in the back. Steve, I've never been hit so hard in my life, and I'm talking about throughout, you know, as a rookie with the Los Angeles Rams. You remember a guy named Hacksaw Reynolds?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Hacksaw was just a man. I mean, he was 6'2" and 275 pounds, and boy, he got right in front of me, and he came in on a blitz and a pass, and he hit me right under the chin and knocked me out cold. And I thought that I'll never get hit harder than that in my life. And Bruiser Brody hit me with that chair, and it literally knocked me out. I went down to my face, and I was laying there in the ring, and I couldn't move. I opened my eyes, and I actually took my fingers in to make sure they were open, and I still couldn't see. All I saw was black. And I went into the locker room, and Kurt Penning, who was just in my book was one of the all-time great individuals, just funny, fun to be around. I drove with him and Scott. Scott and I had developed a friendship back then, and Kurt Henning. And Scott came over and said, "Let me see your back." And he starts laughing, and he got everyone around there. And on my back was imprinted the Milwaukee Chair Company. And he had hit me so hard that the lettering had made an impression on my back. And you literally could read it. So, buddy, I'll tell you what, that I've never been hit harder than that in my life. And so from Bruiser Brody, I went to Stan Hansen, and, that wasn't much better. And then I finally got to Jerry Blackwell, and he had a softer side to him. He was a big, tough guy, don't get me wrong, but, he started teaching me a little bit. And from there, I started learning, and, my master started improving. And
well, let's go back to the Bruiser Brody story when he shellacked with the chair after the big boot to the gourd. Usually there's a little conversation that happens after the goings on in a match. Did you say, hey, what's up, or shake hands, or say, are you just going about your business? Because obviously you went out there thinking you was going to work a match, and not so much.
Well, no, he came up to me. He came up to me and stuck his hand out and then said, Leon, that wasn't about you. I apologize. I hope you're all right. I mean, he wasn't apologetic, but he explained
Right.
it, that there's some things going on. And you know what? I was in no position. I mean, again, this was Bruiser Brody. He was, making big money over in Japan and really was doing this part-time for Vern Gagne on his days off from Japan. But he had a full schedule with Bob, as did Stan. So Stan and Brody would come together, and Stan Hansen in his prime and Bruiser Brody in his prime. Let me tell you what, there was two mean cats. I mean, they could get in the ring and flat get the job done, and I can't say it without cussing, so I'm gonna let it go.
Go
but
ahead.
They could get it done. Oh, they could fight or climb a tree. Let me tell you what, Bruiser Brody in his prime, 6'5", 340 pounds, and no fat on him, and he was in shape. He didn't drink. He didn't, and Stan the same way. Stan was, wasn't quite as tall as Brody, but about 340. And let me tell you what, man, that was a tough job.